requested that I do this for India, so here we are. In this video, we're going to take a look at a few maps of India that teach us about the country. These are maps about statistics, features that characterize the population, the land, and India overall. Some might be very specific, but for each of them, we can usually draw a conclusion that helps us better understand the way the country exists, how it works, and how its internal provinces and states differentiate themselves from each other on various aspects. India is so big and complex that one video like this would probably never be enough to fully understand the country, but hopefully these will provide an initial and at least basic understanding. Getting right into it and starting with the ones on the thumbnail, India has a lot of languages, like a lot. This map identifies 20 major ones. As far as I know, these 20 vary between being slightly different local dialects with the same linguistic basis or fully different languages. In this additional map, we can see these 20 grouped up into language families, with the number going down to 7, and if we're really looking at it, they're mostly 3, the ones in green, blue, and orange. But back to the more detailed map. Some are quite more widespread than others. It honestly seems like, save 3 exceptions, each state has its own language. Hindi is clearly the most common one in yellow, Telugu in purple is the most common in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Yanam, and Hindi's language dominance is not only in number of states, but also in total number of speakers. Keep in mind, most people in India speak more than one of these languages. Hindi is spoken by 692 million, English by 129, Bengali by 107, despite only being the largest language in West Bengal, Marathi by 99, and Telugu by 91. This allows us to understand the big cultural differences that exist within India and between its states, as evidenced by these linguistic differences. Next is this map about household size. The thumbnail might have been misleading because it said family size. In blue are the households with the least amount of people on average, with the states in beige, yellow, and orange being the ones with the highest number of people per household. It's interesting because the lowest is Tamil Nadu in the south, with 3.9 people, a number that isn't particularly low itself, especially when we compare to other nations worldwide. For instance, the highest average household size in a US state is Utah at 3.08. The US state with the highest has a smaller value than the Indian state with the lowest value in this indicator. I think no other state has a number under 4 for the average size, with many of them being over 5 or even over 6, especially as we move further north. This allows us to understand that India, despite being a very big country, is also a country with high population density, with many families living inside the same house. But here we can see population density itself, and while we do see some more density in the north, we also see it in the south, which have lower values in the first map. So after all, the household size difference might not be a consequence of population density alone, and might take into account other factors, such as the ability of children to move out of their family home and begin their own household, and other economic or cultural reasons. This map and a couple others I use in this video were made by India in Pixels. They're a great account on Instagram which creates these types of data maps. You should definitely check out their work if these interest you. Before we keep going on with the maps, a quick message about a friend of the channel and sponsor of this video, Blinkist. Blinkist is a great app that takes thousands of non-fiction books and condenses them into 15-minute reading or listening sessions. Right now, I'm listening to a book called The Anarchy, which is about the East India Company and its role in India, namely the negative aspects of it and the consequences it had on India's early development. Like most books on Blinkist, it's divided into 10 blinks, which are essentially key ideas of the book. So not only do they summarize entire books into small summaries, but each summary is divided into small portions itself, which you can read or listen to at a time. Since most people's obstacle to reading is precisely how much time it takes, Blinkist provides a great solution for this. The first 100 people to go to Blinkist.com/general knowledge will get free unlimited access for 1 week, and then also a 25% discount if you choose to continue with the full membership. Thanks to them for sponsoring this video. And now back to the maps. Another aspect in which India varies internally and which also shows us these cultural differences is religion. This map shows us the largest religion by district. The data is from 2011, but I imagine in the past 10 years it will not have changed that much. Hinduism in purple is clearly dominant throughout most most of the country's territory, but there are some majority Christian districts in the northeast, Buddhist in the north, surrounding Nepal and Bhutan, Sikhist in the northwest, and Islamic in the northwest and east, bordering Pakistan and Bangladesh. There's also an area here in the south as well as these islands where Islam is the biggest religion. I couldn't find out why. It's odd that it's so far away from the majority Islamic regions, so if you know why, please let me know. But a lot of times this religious dominance might not be that big. If you have a district with 3 religions and 2 of them are followed by 30% of the people while the other is followed by 40%, the third one will be shown as dominant in a map like this, while the other 2 are still very big and relevant and the difference isn't that much. That might be the case in some of these districts. In this additional map, we can see the second most followed religion in each district. Islam is the second religion in the majority of districts countrywide. Hinduism is the second mostly in the Pakistan and Bangladesh border regions, with a few islands of Buddhism and Sikhism throughout. Catholicism is quite common as the second biggest religion in the southern and western districts of the country. I was honestly surprised by this. Something that's almost as serious as religious differences is the preference for coffee or tea. According to this map, almost all Indians prefer tea over coffee. The national result is an advantage of plus 91.6 for tea. As far as I can see from this, there's not a single state that prefers coffee. In the north, there is almost a tea exclusivity, while in the south, there is a little more openness to coffee, but not even to the point where both are drank equally. The closest is Tamil Nadu, where tea has an advantage of only 59.8 points. India, along with China, is responsible for the world's consumption of tea. In the 1830s, the first tea estates were established in the Indian state of Assam using tea plants brought from China. And today, India is one of the largest tea producers in the world. Although 70% of what it makes is consumed within the country, a number of renowned teas such as the Assam or the Darjeeling are grown exclusively in the country. Since we're comparing tea to coffee, it's also interesting to compare eating habits. If this data is accurate, it's honestly really interesting. It shows us the percentage of people in each state which consider themselves to be vegetarian. The ones where the green circle is bigger have more vegetarians than non-vegetarians. And it's shocking to me how 5 states have a majority of vegetarian people, with many others having significant percentages of the population being so. And what's most surprising are the complete opposites that can be seen. How can this state in the west have 75% of its population being vegetarian, while this one in the east only have 1.4? The only reasons I can come up with for this are 2. First, cultural and or religious reasons, and 2, economic ones. Maybe some states have cultures or mostly follow religions that lead them away from meat consumption, and maybe some states don't have industry and agriculture that allows them to consume as much meat, or the opposite, they have successful vegetable ones. Apparently the first reason is the main one. India contains more vegetarians than the rest of the world combined, roughly 500 million people. This is mostly driven by class and religious systems. Most religious paths in India hold vegetarianism as an ideal. The amount of vegetarians that India has compared to the world really makes us put into perspective the amount of people in the country. And in the next map, we can see each Indian state compared to an entire country in terms of population. India has 28 states, and it's precisely 28 countries that fit inside it population-wise. And it's surreal. Countries like France, Japan, Germany, Italy, the UK, Thailand, even Pakistan itself, the western neighbor, has its population equivalent to a single Indian state. With a total of 1.38 billion, it's the second most populated country in the world, with 17.7% of the world's population, just behind China, which represents 18.4% with 1.4 billion. But future projections point to India quickly surpassing it and becoming number 1 worldwide. Now that we've understood the size of India's population, we can also understand the size of its economy. India ranks number 6 in the largest economies in the world, only behind the UK, Germany, Japan, China, and the United States. And it's ahead of countries like France, Italy, Canada, South Korea, Russia, Australia, or Brazil. Its GDP is around 2.6 trillion US dollars. This map is interesting because it allows us to do 2 things. 1, see which states within India have the biggest internal GDP and therefore the biggest contribution towards the national number. These are the ones in darker color, and also written on top of each state the name of a country worldwide which has an equivalent GDP to that state. And it's impressive how single Indian states can match the GDPs of Norway, Denmark, Ukraine, Morocco, Qatar, Hungary, or Portugal. And continuing to speak of states, Indian states have, obviously, their own internal names. But to someone who does not speak at least one of India's many languages, it can be difficult to understand their meanings. This map attempts to show us the literal English meaning of the names of Indian states. Obviously, these direct and literal translations are always somewhat questionable and perhaps wrong altogether, but if these, at least some of them, are accurate, then Indian state names are really cool. Some are basic, like the Northern Territory or the Land of the Southern People, but others are awesome, like the Land of the High Passes or Land of the Kings, the New Palace, the Land of the 36 Forts, among other interesting ones. And finally, two extra maps that add a little more interesting information about India. First, its railway network. India has the third largest railway network size in the world, only behind the US and China, and in this map, we can see it clearly. It stretches nearly everywhere. And this other map, which predicts what India would look like if all the ice on the poles melted. A vast majority of the country would disappear. It would still be very large, but look entirely different. The east and northeast would be particularly affected, and the northwest as well, with a new set of islands being created as the only land masses that would survive the rise of the water levels due to their high elevation. So, those are a few interesting maps of India that teach you about the country. Like I said at the start, India is an incredibly large and complex country with tremendous information and differences about and between its people and territories. These two handfuls of maps are obviously not enough to entirely or even partially understand the country, but I think they are a good starting point for someone who, like me, didn't know almost anything about the country and wanted to learn more. Understanding some of the cultural, linguistic, and religious differences of the country, its size, economic power, among a few other interesting details about it. If you guys enjoyed this and the video does well, I can definitely do more of this for India using additional maps that explain the way the country is and how its internal provinces and states differentiate themselves. If you have any suggestions for these additional maps and also for other countries I could do this about, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to catch future videos, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.